Yes, people. Good evening and welcome back to the Armoury TV. I'm GTalks Arsenal, your host for tonight's show, which is now episode 2 of GTalks. And tonight we're basically going to be, debating, discussing, and maybe even deciding whether or not Arsenal are in fact title challenges and whether or not we will actually or could actually win the Premier League title. So, I mean, we're going to be addressing the elephant in the room, the conversation that I think most Arsenal fans have up until this point avoided, but we're going to take it on, we're going to tackle it and see what we come to the conclusion at the end of the show. So to do that, I need some gooners. So I've assembled an amazing squad for tonight's show. Niger from the Armoury TV hopefully will be joining us. So, I mean, when he's ready, he'll just jump in. But I'll start with, obviously, my boy JC, Jake, Mr. Arsenal Analyze. How you doing, my bro?
It's a nice introduction. I like that. Real good. But yeah, I'm doing well. I don't think I've been on the Armoury before. I can't think of a previous time. So I really do appreciate the invite. And looking forward to making my debut under what is a really good subject matter to 100%. Kick things off with. So I'm looking forward to getting stuck into this one. And once again, thank you very much for inviting me on.
No problem at all, man. It's an absolute pleasure. And my fellow Trini, residing all the way from Florida. What's going on, my bro, Neil?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm happy to be on, your second episode from your transition into the Armoury TV. It's, well done to you. Well done to the Armoury. Big acquisition here. So big things happening. Yeah, man. It's definitely a big topic, and I'm ready to dive in.
Wicked. Well, you know what? We're going to run that intro video, and then we're going to get stuck right into it. Yes. Right. Like I said, we've done, what we're here to talk about. We've done the introduction. So we're literally going to just, get stuck into it and obviously start this conversation. So, I mean, talking about the title, like I said in the little intro, is I think it's a conversation that all Gooners to some extent have avoided, despite our great start to the Premier League season. But before we kind of get stuck into whether or not we see ourselves as title challengers, or if in fact we feel at this point we could potentially go on to win the league, we're gonna go back a little bit, back in time, because I'm not sure. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. But at the beginning of the season, very much like the beginning of last season, and every season, we go into the season with somewhat expectations. And just to kind of put that into context, like I think with last season, I mean, I don't know about you both, but for me, the target was to get back into Europe. The target was to achieve a top 6 finish. Now, obviously, expectations somewhat changed because we ran very close, to getting into that top 4. It was within our grasp, and we did unfortunately let it slip away. So coming into this season, Arsenal fans would have had expectations based on 2 back-to-back 8th place finishes, and then obviously an improved 5th place finish. So I'll come to you first, Neil. Going into this season, what were your realistic expectations before a ball had even been kicked?
My honest expectation going into the new season was a genuine 4th place contender. 3rd, 4th place contender. We would go in. I think when at the time the team itself looked strong enough. The additions looked good. I personally thought that even though with the preseason that we had, there was more gelling that needed to happen, and that's why I kind of had that perception that maybe we could challenge for maybe we could challenge for 3rd or 4th, based on the competition that was around us, because everyone else strengthened, right?
100%, 100%. Coming to you, JC. Do you share a similar view to Neil, or does your view kind of differ somewhat, like in terms of expectations going into the season?
Yeah, I have to agree with Neil. Coming into this season, I think everyone would have probably agreed that City and Liverpool would have been in a league of their own, battling for the title for first and second place. I know it hasn't necessarily transpired into that, given how poorly Liverpool have started the campaign, which has opened up a spot for someone like Arsenal. But I think when you look at the drop-off that United had, and then other rivals, which include Spurs and Chelsea, you'd always have to fancy yourself, because Arsenal weren't exactly a million miles away from fourth place at the back end of last season.
Yeah.
And then obviously the transition that Chelsea went through with new owners and not really buying sensibly, there was always going to be an opportunity there for someone like Arsenal to really compete for third or fourth. Yeah. So, yeah, to be in that conversation now is obviously, it's always a good thing. But yeah, my expectation was this season, top four finish, no excuses, especially given how close we were last year.
I hear you. And just a quick pause in proceedings. Obviously, just want to welcome somebody new into the chat, new here. So yeah, welcome. Please do hit that like button, and also please do subscribe if you haven't already. But welcome to the channel and to the show. You know what? I think all Gooners were, somewhat, on the same page, going into this season. I think very few, had a different opinion. I mean, finishing 8th back-to-back was tough. That was really, really tough, because I think most of us, I think we're all around the kind of similar age here. We are used to, and we were used to, supporting a club that was successful, whether or not that be title challenges, whether that not be consistently in Europe, or, winning, FA Cups, seemed like every other season. I know it wasn't, but, we have a very famous tradition in that cup. So, Arsenal's a huge club. And I think although we came into last season with expectations of finishing top 6, I think, the lads did a very good job, despite the late disappointment, to get a fifth place spot in the Premier League. But I think for me, similarly to what you both feel, I think going into the season, it was really important that we improved on 5th spot, and that we could show, if we finish in the top 4, then we can show that there's been progression, steady progression from 8th, 5th to then at least minimum 4th. I think the problem is as we know, as the season progresses, there are times when expectations will dip based on the form of the team, and there'll be times when expectations will rise because the team's playing very well. I mean, 13 games in, and I'll come to you first now, JC. 13 games in at this point, I mean, we can't complain. We said on last night's stream, me and you with Albert on League Judges, that we've only dropped a possible, I think, 5 points out of a possible 39. Now, at this stage of the season, 13 games in, what have you been most impressed with, and what, if anything, is concerning you?
I'd say, in terms of what's impressed me, is the players we've bought and how quickly they've adapted and transitioned and elevated this team into where we wanted to be. It's all well and good saying that we finished 5th last year and then we want to go ahead and challenge for top 4, but you've got to make sure that you bring the right players in, have the right mindset and the right tactics. Things have changed from last year. Arsenal were playing a lot deeper. Whilst there were games where we would implement the high press, it's nothing compared to what we've seen this season. And that tone is set by the likes of Gabriel Jesus, who's had a massive effect on the likes of Gabriel Martinelli. So I've been massively impressed with what Arsenal are doing on the front foot. That winning mentality by bringing players in like Jesus and Zinchenko, for example, have had a massive impact on the team. Thomas Partey being consistently fit and showing that he is now the player that we originally bought. We never really got to see who he was and what he was bringing to this team in the last 2 seasons, but we're now starting to see those reasons. And the team simply does not perform in the same way when you take him out of this side, Saliba is another one, a young player. There were big question marks over whether or not he was going to start and what sort of impact he was going to have. And arguably one of the best, if not the best, performing centre-back in the Premier League at the moment. So there's so many positives from an individual basis, from performances. We spoke about Ben White last night and the impact he's had at right back, which was another big surprise. But it's also tactically, Arsenal are showing different tactics this season. Arsenal are playing with a front five. We're playing with inverted fullbacks. Last year we didn't. We had Kieran Tierney playing on the left, showing much more width, and Tomiyasu playing a little bit deeper with the likes of Saka. So there's plenty to look at there. I think what's also been really impressive for me is that Arteta seems to have learned as well from those mistakes that he made at the back end of the season. So great positives to take from the team. My only slight concern is that Arsenal don't have the required squad depth. Whether or not you want to look at it from purely a Premier League point of view or across all four competitions that we're competing in at the moment, we've seen in the Europa League already that there's been a significant dip in the team performance when we do have a heavily rotated side. And that was evident when we played at home. Mind, that's a huge advantage against Zurich, who are currently bottom of their league, with all due respect. So I think for me, squad depth is a big concern. And there were glimpses this month where we had 9 fixtures where those cracks were starting to show. However, when the first team 11 is fit and available, the quality is there for everyone to see. But my concern is, and I'm sure we'll get into it, problems arose last season because of a lack of acquisition in January and a lack of squad depth and a gamble that Arteta took thinking the squad would stay fit. And ultimately, we had 3 significant injuries, which ultimately impacted where we finished at the end of the season. So that's my main concern at the moment.
No problem. And on that note, Niger is going to join us. So I'm going to quickly introduce and bring Niger in, and then we'll come on to you, Neil. Yes, my brother Niger. What's good?
Oh yeah, now my people, it's your dark-skinned man from the motherland. If you didn't know before, tonight you got to understand. Big up the man there. Sorry, I'm fashionably late. I completely missed the times. I thought I had 10
listen, bro. Listen. I prepped the guys already.
I was coming in early right now.
Listen. But when we was backstage, I was like, listen, Nigel's joining us, but yeah, his punctuality is a bit off still. So at some point, he's going to arrive, isn't it?
Right, the funniest thing, I literally thought I was coming in early to the stream. Sorry,
bro, we've been live for like 30 minutes, bro.
Wait, hey, can you hear me okay? Am I sounding distorted or anything? Or
no, you're all good, man. There's a little distortion, but no, nothing major.
Oh, there is? Let me maybe just go off the headphones.
No worries. But yeah, man, we've got here. So yeah, no, thank you for that.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's a lot better. Yeah. So far, what we basically spoke about in brief is obviously expectations going into the new season. And what kind of Neil and JC said is that very similar to what all Gooners, I think, imagined, is that they wanted to see progression based on obviously finishing back-to-back 8th, finishing 5th. So I think we're all kind of on the same page in that we want to see Arsenal, at the beginning of the season, we wanted to see Arsenal comfortably finish in the top 4. JC's kind of just touched on now, obviously, what's impressed him so far in the season and what he's kind of concerned with. So I'm going to come to you, Neil, and then I'm going to come back to you, Niger, and I'm going to cover those 2 points to give you an opportunity to have your say. So Neil, from your perspective, what, similarly to JC, what has impressed you and what have you been, or if anything, been concerned about so far in this season?
For me, the one thing that I've always asked from the team is to compete. That's the only thing I ask. Every game that we play, I want to see the boys compete and compete on every level, not compete for the 90 minutes. I mean, compete for battles, for individual headers, for everything. And I'm seeing that now. So from that aspect, I'm really happy to see that from every player on the pitch. And I mean, JC kind of covered it all, like with what you're seeing now with the inverted wing backs and how we're seeing, Zinchenko come inside. And if not him, sometimes Tomiyasu. You have that extra coverage, which allows our front five to actually go forward, and that's where we're seeing Xhaka has a more potent role in the team. I wouldn't believe that number 34 would be putting so many smiles on not just my face, but I would imagine across the Arsenal fan base. So it's just something that I'm happy to see. I'm just happy to see that we're competing in every game, and not just against the lower league teams that the big six teams are struggling to beat right now. But everyone.
Yeah. In terms of concerns, though, do you have anything that you're concerned about? Because obviously it's hard, isn't it? We're in a really good position. 13 games in, we're top of the league. We've only dropped 5 points out of a possible 39. But are there any red flags or alarm bells when you look at this Arsenal squad?
I mean, I think it's very obvious. It's not a secret. The lack of depth is very apparent. We see the levels drop in the Europa League games, as Jake correctly pointed out. And I would like to see us go in January and actually pull not just one, but maybe 2 or maybe 3. I might be asking for too much. But surely the people up above, they're surely smelling a trophy. They're surely seeing something there that can really make a impact in the league, and say, Arsenal are not here to play around anymore. What's in the past is in the past. We've had a very hard 8 to 9 years. It's been very toxic as a club. So, they should really, put things in place to, make a couple of signings in January. And according to some news outlets, I'm seeing some movement.
The whispers are, already circling, surfacing, saying, we probably will be busy in January. I'm going to come to you, Nigel, and it's kind of like a 2-part question based on obviously your punctuality, so what you're on mute, just by the way. Going into the season, before a ball was even kicked, what was your expectations for this season? And now we're 13 games in, what have you been most impressed with, and what are you, if anything, concerned about?
My goal, I had a goal from the team from not even this summer, previous summer. I remember after that was when I fully committed to the Arteta project last summer, when I saw how he ignored all the stories in the press and all the different players we were linked with, and he just went with his players like Ramsdale, this guy, and all the other guys that he went, Tomiyasu. And I was a bit skeptical about how he spent the money, but I was like, do you know what? This guy's so confident in his team that he's ignored what everyone else wants, and he just said, these are the players I want. I was like, do you know what? He's that confident and someone so inexperienced. I'm going to back him. Let's get behind this. And I looked at the squad. I was like, do you know what? We're probably 2 players short of the top 4, but top 6 was my target for that, for his level of management. For his level of management. So then, obviously, we finished 5th last season, and this season, the next step was to hit Champions League, so finish the top 4. And I thought we'd comfortably do that with the window that we had, the players that we got in, and I would say we're still probably 3 players short of of challenging for the league. Yeah. But here we are, innit? Here we are. 13 games in, and Arsenal are top of the league. And let's be fair, I've been reluctant to talk about this title challenge, innit? I've been reluctant to talk about it.
We're talking about it tonight, bro.
But how can I keep ignoring it? And it's not necessarily just us. It's now, I don't know if you saw the stat on, I think after Sunday's game, it was like 8 points ahead of Spurs with a game in hand, 12 points ahead of Chelsea, 14 ahead of Liverpool. And I was just looking at it like, do you know what? Like, as much as I want to ignore this thing, it's clear to say we are the closest competitors to City. That doesn't mean we're going to win the league. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, but we are clearly in a title race. Yeah. Regardless of however you want to look at it. So I'm saying, Arsenal fans, this is what I'll say to us right now. Don't let the opposition fans draw you out. Don't let them force you to change the narrative. Because this is what they want. They want us to now say, we're going to win the league. We're going to win the league. And then when we don't, they're like, you lot bottled it. Like
Receipts.
For us to bottle this season, we'd have to finish outside the top 4 because that
100%.
was my expectation.
Yeah.
And I'm not letting anyone sway me. I'm not letting the form of the team sway me because at the end of the day, we've seen movies like this with Arsenal before. We've seen how this movie ends, innit? So let's not get too excited before we get into... For me, once we secure Champions League football, as much as I want to dream, I'm not ready to dream until then, bro. Personally, until we've secured the amount of points to secure Champions League, see where we are to in terms of City, that's when I'll be like, we might be able to do this. But it all stems on a big January, bro. We need a big January, the biggest one we've ever had. Can I see the club doing it? Personally, no. But that's what we need to really push forward. 2-3 players in January.
I hear that. Neil, did you want to come in with something before we move on?
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. Like, so in addition to us being in at that top spot, there was a recent stat that I heard over the weekend that in City's years of being title winners, this is their best start in all those, and they're sitting second. So what does that say about Arsenal?
Bro, that's actually crazy. I didn't know
that's
that.
A mad
we're balling, bro. Let's not get twisted. We're balling out here right now.
You know, that was 11 wins, a draw and a loss.
Yeah, that's mad. You know, I didn't know that. Like, don't get me wrong. I know we've been good. And I think, you know, I was having this conversation with my son. All of a sudden, like, he's interested in Arsenal again. I think it's because we're doing well. I mean, trying to get this work from day, you know. And now all of a sudden he's sitting down watching games with me. He's like, yeah, what? We're top of the table. I don't think he could take the bants like that he was getting like a couple seasons ago. But yeah, all of a sudden he's into it. Well, me and him were having this conversation. I said, what you got to remember, is the squad that City have. But we're topping City in the league table after 13 games, even with this machine robot hybrid player that they got up top. Like that, you know, it's not just the fact that it's City, because City without Haaland, for me, would be favourites to win the league. But you've introduced this player who is just going to break all kinds of records. He's scoring for fun. I don't even know what the stats are, but I know he's got way more goals than he's played games. And yet, there's still, as Pep said it himself, as good as we've been, there is another team in England that has been better. And that is actually crazy when you think about it. And when you say what you've just said, in terms of this being their best start to a Premier League season, I mean, that's kind of blown my mind. But yeah, that's crazy. We'll go to some comments. We've got Gumza here. Yes, big up Gumza. I love this club right now. Don't think we win the league, but the club has done amazingly to make us challengers. Just got to build upon it. We've got Silver Fox here. It's time for KSE to go all in, just like they did for the Los Angeles Rams last year. Luke here saying 100% the silver one. As a fan base, we need to be on their case if they don't. And also, we've got an update here with regards to the lineup for the game tonight against Brighton. Okay, bit of an interesting one. Yeah,
I'm happy with the front three, man.
Yeah, I personally didn't expect that. Quick thoughts. I'll just go around very quickly. 30 seconds. Neil, what do you think of the lineup?
Seems as their focus is very heavy on the Prem.
JC?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Neil. I'm surprised that Heinheen is in goal. I was expecting what's his face, Turner. I thought he was back in training, if I'm honest with you. But apart from that, the rest doesn't really surprise me. It was either going to be Saliba or Gabriel at centre back, wasn't it? Yeah. So the rest of it doesn't surprise me. They're very sort of similar to the team we played against Zurich.
Niger,
what is Okonkwo on loan?
Yeah,
Nigeria
he is.
Guy.
I think he's at Leighton
Not
Orient.
like I have a personal interest in him because he's Nigerian.
I think it's Leighton Orient he's at. I could be wrong, but yeah, he's definitely one of the lower league sides. Yeah, quick thoughts on the lineup.
Yeah, to be honest, that's the same team I picked, bar Saliba and Heinz Beans or whatever that guy's name.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm happy we're finally seeing Marquinhos again because I'm surprised we haven't seen a little bit more of him in the Europa League.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm happy we're seeing him tonight.
He seemed to come in and kind of like, for me, he took it by storm. He came in, I think it was against Zurich or one of the teams. I think he got an assist, he got a goal, and then it's kind of pitted out since then. So I don't know what's gone on, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see what he can do tonight.
But I'm secretly excited about it.
Yeah,
hear me out. I'm because that in my head that means we're working on something in January, because it looks the way we're using him is like he's gonna go somewhere on loan and then we're gonna get someone in. That's how it looks. But
you hope.
I don't want to look too much into the future. You know, the ones there.
They're conspiracy theories, yeah.
Yeah, bro. You know me, bro.
Wicked. Right, we'll move on to the next kind of talking point. So I mean, right now momentum is good. You know, as we've discussed. But we've got the small matter of a World Cup. The league is about to be paused for the next month or so. So my question to you, all three of you, and I'll come to you first, Nigel, on this one, is, you know, is this a case of worse timing, or is it a case of a welcomed pause, and why?
To be honest, for me, I'm at the stage where I think after the Southampton game, I was just like, do you know what? Let's just get to the World Cup with no losses and no injuries, and then we go again. Innit? That's all I was thinking. Yeah. We go again. So I think it's a welcome break, because it means that the opposition fans have to see us top the league for another month or so. So I'm excited about seeing that. So, but yeah, the only thing I'm worried about the World Cup is, I know my name is Niger Englishman, man. A lot of people give me stick for this. I'm quarter Ghanaian, innit? So Ghana knocked Nigeria out of the playoffs to get to the World Cup. So it was kind of a bit of a salty one for me. But I'm back in Ghana. But part of me is like, I hope they get knocked out in the group stages, because obviously that protects Partey for the season. Because we need to wrap him up in cotton wool, because I don't think there's any DM in the world like him. And what I mean by that is that there's great DMs that I'm not saying he's the best DM in the world, but there's not many like him. What I mean by that is that how many people he can do everything. He literally can spray a pass, drive it forward, like win the ball without going on his feet. If he needs to slide tackle, he does. Taking the ball in high pressure situations, like he's got everything. I think the problem with his first 2 seasons at Arsenal was obviously the injuries. And when Arteta realized how much he could do, he was asking him to do everything. Like, you saw him box to box, you saw him like trying to dribble and all these things. And we weren't really sure his position. But now he's literally just cleaning up in front of the back four. That's his best position. But if you need him to spray a pass from time to time, he can do it. So I'm welcoming this World Cup break. But I can also see a record-breaking January window as a result of it. The most money spent in January ever, because a lot of clubs might need surgery. So I'm confident that maybe once we might actually do some proper business in January. I'm excited to see that.
Okay. You know what, with me with the World Cup thing, is I'm finding it hard to kind of judge how I see it. I think I was very similar to you, Niger, in that I think, you know, when we looked a bit shaky against the likes of Zurich and Southampton and Leeds and stuff, I mean, you know, I think we won 2 of those games and I think drew with Southampton. But I kind of felt like at that point, somewhat the wheels might fall off. And then we seem to have bounced back. You know, we beat Forest, we qualified, you know, group winners. We've gone on to obviously, you know, obviously beat Chelsea. So I'm starting to feel like now I'm feeling like, you know, it's the timing's not great. Do you know what I mean? I kind of prefer if we were just going to play the league. But I think my only concerns is that with the World Cup is that people see it as a rest. And the thing is, like, when the players that are not going to the World Cup, yes, they're going to be in Dubai. Yes, they're going to be playing friendlies. But there's nothing like playing competitive matches. And that kind of worries me, that with that, actually people are worried about the players that are going to the World Cup. But I'm somewhat concerned with the players that are going to be chilling in Dubai. I'm not sure how ready they will be when competition kicks back off, because we're not talking about fitness. I think they'll be fit, but it's just transitioning from almost like preseason settings back into like competitive football. I'm just not sure how that's going to flow. And then obviously the World Cup, we have some players that potentially could go quite far in the competition. There is a risk of injuries. And as we've already noted, you know, we're not massively confident when it comes to our squad depth. JC, do you, you know, for you, this World Cup, obviously it's happening. There's nothing we can do about it. Worst timing or welcome?
Worst timing for me. The biggest problem with the World Cup for me at the moment is that, like you said, it's competitive.
Yeah.
People go into the World Cup, they're going to want to go far. It's a big opportunity for some of these players who've never been to a World Cup before. So there is a chance that some players could get injured, which could cause problems and force the hand in January, depending on who gets injured. For example, if it's a Thomas Partey, you know, we have the required depth, but not the required quality, in my opinion, in order to do what we need to do.
Yeah.
Momentum as well. You know, although as both you and Nigel sort of highlighted, yes, we went on a bit of a dodgy patch with Leeds, Southampton and Zurich, but smashing Forest 5-0, then beating Chelsea 1-0, like for confidence and momentum, that is huge. Like that is absolutely huge. Yeah. And it shows the mentality shift compared to last season where we did go through those bad patches and then capitulated and then went on a bad run of form. Like we haven't done that this time. We've turned it round. And this is a perfect time to continue playing up to Christmas and really make a statement. So for me, to lose those players to potential injury and have to go through a mini pre-season with other players who could also be coming into form, who are not selected by their sides. Odegaard, for example, you know, he's not going to the World Cup.
Yeah.
He's a top player. He's going to have to go through a mini pre-season potentially, you know, and that's just one of several players. So for me personally, it's come at a terrible, terrible time.
You know what the interesting thing is about the World Cup, though?
Gunner King, I was going to introduce you to the show, bro.
Well, I just saw the show, man, and I was just like, yeah, like, you know what?
Go ahead. Let us know your thoughts.
Like, I've looked at it. I've looked at City's first team, and I've looked at Arsenal's first 11 to, let's say, 13 players, yeah? The majority of our better players are not at that established level, at international level. So Ramsdale, does he start? I don't think he does over Pickford.
No, he don't.
Ben White, he might start given the situation with James and Trent, but does he play all of our games? You know, does he start all of the games? If he starts games, does he play to the full 90 in all of them? Yeah. You know, you've got Gabriel who's not going, one of our main centre-backs. Tierney and Zinchenko who are not going. Two of our main left-backs, and ones that have had niggling injuries that have looked like maybe they need a rest to kind of get over, you know, let their body fully kind of settle, as it were. You've got Saliba probably will play now, I think, because Varane's carrying
Will he start?
I think he might, you know, given the form he's been in. He's been one of the best. Look, I've been saying it. Forget the Premier League. He's been one of the best centre-backs in Europe.
Yeah.
So far this season, like, you know, when you're comparing like the relevant metrics and what you're seeing to the best defenders in all of Europe's top 5 leagues, he's up there amongst all of them. So I think there's a compelling argument he probably does start for France if Varane's not fit. But then you've got Partey and Xhaka, they'll start. Odegaard's not going, you know, as JC mentioned. That's huge. Again, another player that's had that kind of niggling kind of injury history that who could do with a rest as well. I think there's parts of his game that he could work on refining, you know, with his shooting and his finishing, you know, like gives a mini pre-season an opportunity to kind of work with him on a more one-on-one basis, you know, to kind of upskill him in these areas. Like, you look at Saka, okay, he starts, does he play all the matches? Martinelli, he's got Neymar and Vinicius Jr. in front of him on the left-hand side.
Getting no minutes,
you know,
he's not starting no games.
Yeah, he's
going to be at most an impact sign.
He's going to be an impact player, yeah. And Gabriel Jesus, as good as he is, Tite's system likes a Richarlison number 9 a bit more, someone with a bit more physicality that can hold the ball up. You know, for the likes of Neymar, Paqueta, Vinicius Jr., Rafinha, all of these creative players behind them to get into the box because they're actually the better finishers in that Brazil team.
Yeah.
You know, so they're the goal outlets. You know, Richarlison's just kind of linking up everything for them. So Jesus doesn't start a great deal of games either. And when you compare this to City's first team, Ruben Dias, he starts.
They're all starters.
You know, Cancelo starts.
Yeah.
You know, Laporte starts. Stones probably starts for England. De Bruyne starts. Rodri starts. Bernardo Silva starts. You know, Foden plays a lot of games. You know, Haaland, okay, he's resting. Grealish, there's a case that he might start a lot of games.
So you're saying that this could be potentially advantage Arsenal?
This is what I've been saying to people. Like, when you look at it in that context, yeah, with like the core of their team being nailed on starters, you know, like if they're competing in nations that are going to go far in the tournament, then they're going to be the players that are going to be less rested when the Premier League season returns. And I think it's difficult to say that doesn't benefit Arsenal.
Yeah,
when you look at it like
that's
that.
the interesting angle. Still,
it is very interesting angle. And to be honest, like, yeah, big up Gunner King, because I didn't really deep it like that, to be honest. In terms of the players, like, you know, I kind of thought about my angle from thinking about the players in a kind of mini pre-season. I mean, for me, that's not ideal when you're in the midst of a season to kind of then, you know, chill out, you know, put your feet up, move away, because people say we got friendlies, but I'm like, there's no
it's not the same
between a friendly and competitive Premier League match. There just isn't. So that was my concern. I mean, so yeah, no, that's an amazing angle to look from it.
We're the only country in Europe, I think, that doesn't have winter breaks, and even normal winter breaks, like conventional ones in other countries, are only 4 weeks. Yeah. I think they're never 6 weeks.
It's hard to see what kind of impact it's going to have, but from the angle where you're coming from, it makes a lot of sense. Neil,
it's the same for the chasing pack though as well. Yeah. I know we've got games in hand, but like you said, I didn't even think about it and look at it the way that Gunner King has. But you know, you look at the teams behind us, the chasing pack, the Spurs, the Chelseas, the Liverpools, and whoever else. You know, they've also got a lot of internationals as well. When you look at it, when you really strip it back, when you start to think about it, I was sitting there thinking about it as you're saying it, and I was like, hold on, Chelsea.
Because I didn't think about that either.
The same boat.
It's a good point.
JC, I didn't think about that at all either. You know, like how it affects
when you look at it last season, I remember we were like X amount of points in front of Spurs and United and stuff, and they all eventually caught up. But this could cause a problem for those teams as well. Mm-hmm. Even though the gap's so big, that could be a problem for them.
Mm. Yeah, man, definitely. Neil, I want to come to you on this World Cup. You know, what are your feelings? You've heard from the rest of the panel in terms of like concerns. You know, it seems like we're kind of split. You know, we can see there are some concerns, but you know, when you kind of flip it, particularly what Gunner King has said, you know, it could potentially work in our favor, which I definitely didn't think of from that angle. But in terms of like your perspective, how are you seeing this World Cup?
Well, I mean, you know, in light of the new data that was brought forward by, you know, the Gunner King and JC, you know, they make astronomical points. You know, if we going back, if you look at the other 5 of the big 6, their first 11 are most likely having the most international first starters. So does that give us an advantage? It kind of does. If it does play out like that, it gives us an advantage. But I do understand your point in the sense that levels can drop when you're not playing and there's no momentum. Like our momentum is a very important thing, especially in sport, in business too. But in terms of sport and the way that our team has been playing and together and all of that, momentum is important. So that is my concern. You know, the breaking momentum. Is that going to have a big impact? Time will tell. We don't really know. We can just, you know, sit here and speculate. But I just going back to what Gunner King and JC said, I think those are very, very valid points. I think that we're possibly going to benefit from this World Cup the way that it falls. And you never know.
You never know, man. You never know.
Gunner, those points are golden because I'm thinking.
Trust me.
The only real players that we're worried about, let's be honest, are Partey, and you've seen Ghana's group. It looks kind of peak anyway. Yeah. So the chances are he comes home early. We pray. Yeah. I shouldn't be saying that on live.
I'm not gonna lie. I got enough.
That's buried in Ghana, bro. We got to see that revenge, against Uruguay, bro.
I'm not gonna lie. I got enough Ghanaian.
It's one of them ones, isn't it? Bro, but also,
I won't complain if they go home early.
He's probably the. Sorry.
No, I was just saying, like, I got enough Ghanaian brethrens in it, but I'm not complaining if Ghana get knocked out one time. I
would love Ghana to go far, but would I be crying if they get out in the group stages? Hell no. And I know no Arsenal fan will be because of how important Partey is to our system. Also, Saka, like, that's the one I'm really worried about because he's always playing a bag of games, isn't it? But that further instills my confidence that we'll sign a winger in January because of we need one anyway. Plus, Saka's going to be playing a lot of, and England are definitely going to get out of the group stages. And the third guy is Jesus. And as you said, Gunnar, the chance he might start, he might not start. But also, you think about it this way: if Brazil or France win, we could have a World Cup winner in our camp when they come back after the World Cup, and that could be a massive positive for us too.
And that's huge. And that's huge, man. That is huge. And like I said, on that note, I'm gonna just put it out there. Man. We are going to address the elephant in the room. The question that we've all been avoiding, but Gunnar King is so happy to answer it with such conviction and such confidence is, can we win the league? Now, according to Gunnar King, we can. Gunnar, take it away. Why can we win the league? How are we going to win the league?
Well, there's contingencies, things we'd have to do. But I think when I sat down and thought about this World Cup advantage, No, never. Obviously, I think, someone put up a tweet and went through our squad. That's what, where I saw this a few days ago. I made a TikTok video out of it as well. And I tagged a bunch of Man City fans in it. And they a lot of them said it was a valid point as well. I think that's a massive thing going into the second half of next season. I think, obviously, the reduction of injury from playing time is massive, I think, just playing the law of averages. But also, I think we'd need to buy a couple of players in January.
Key.
I think that's key. At least a midfielder that can cover Partey's position and another winger. Maybe one that can play as a striker as well. But, I think 2 to 3 players will be what we need. But why not, man? I think, look, the way that we're playing at the moment, our form in Newcastle's is the best in the league at the moment. The last 6 games, 5 wins, 1 draw. We've been playing like this throughout the season. We lost to United. We went on an 8-match winning streak. We've been playing the best football, and I think the question will be whether or not they can keep up their energy levels to deliver the quality. But they've shown that the quality is there to play at this very high level. We've smashed a number of the Big Six, the first Big Six team to beat a Big Six club away from home. The second best record after Man United versus the Big Six, when everyone said that'll be an issue for us. So we're not just beating the teams we should be anymore. We're beating up, the teams, that have had a good run, of the mill against us, in Liverpool and, Tottenham, they won against us recently, So I think, if we can keep that up until the end of the season, and if we can add some real quality in January, I don't see why not.
Okay.
Not say we will.
Okay, I'm going to push you at this point. Right now, 13 games in, top of the league, will we or will we not win the league? It's fine.
I mean, it's hard to say yes at the moment, seeing what City and Haaland are doing, but every time I've seen us win the league, we've sometimes had a puncher's chance. The one at Anfield relied on a last-minute winner, from Thomas. Obviously the invincible one to go undefeated. To see Van Nistelrooy get that penalty, to see the ball smash off the crossbar, and to just know in that instant, that title was ours. This is what we've done. I'm not saying, okay, it's been a long time, but we've done it before. I don't see why we can't do it again. But obviously, you'd have to look at City and their situation, their squad, their new pet monster and what he's doing, and say, okay, you'd fancy them to do it, but.
Okay. What I sense is an increase in belief. Let's just say that. JC, I'm going to come to you. Can we win the league?
In short, based on form, if it was to continue the way it is, then yes. However, I don't think we will win the league this season. To put it the way you just said there, my belief compared to what was going on coming into the season has increased significantly. I would have been happy with the top 4 finish, and that still is very much the case. But as Gunnar King alluded to, there's a lot of a lot of moving parts and a lot of if, buts, and maybes. And for me, it depends on where we are as a club come the beginning of February. I'm hoping that the club has learnt from its mistakes last season in terms of we didn't buy in January when we had an opportunity to. We had injuries at the back end of the season, which was a big gamble, which the club openly admitted that if we did get injuries, we would be in trouble. And unfortunately, that's what transpired. So there is a literal blueprint right there for the club to follow. Will the club have the money, or will the club want to spend the money in January? It's evident that we clearly need some form of wide forward who could potentially play a variety of positions, followed by a central midfield player. For me, those two are non-negotiable. That needs to be an absolute must. And then it all very much depends on injuries and how many competitions that we're in come that stage of the season. If we're still in all the cups and we haven't got the squad depth, then, you've got to ask yourself the question, which ones do you prioritize? Where do you put your eggs? So, there's a lot of moving parts. And I think we're in a good position to do it. And I think we're in a great position to really attack all four competitions on all four fronts. But a lot of what we do at the business end of the season for me is going to come down to what injuries we have and how we approach the January market.
100%. So at the moment, we've got Gunner King with a possibly. We've got JC with, a no this season. I'm going to come to you, Nigel, last. Neil, can we win the league? That's the big question. That's the question all Gooners have been avoiding, answering at this stage of the season. So I'm going to put it to you. Where are you feeling?
I think our chances of winning the league are very, very good. Not only because of where we are right now, but to all the points that we discussed in this conversation, especially the ones that JC and Gunnar King brought the attention. It does hinge quite heavily on a strong and successful January transfer window. Yeah, we can all agree on that. But I don't think what we've discussed at all, or haven't really heard about it, is the fact that even though Arsenal is a big club, we've become a very attractive club in our recent form. 100%. And I think with that new outfit, if you want to call it that new attractiveness that we have, it's going to give us an extra oomph, if you will, come the January transfer window, in terms of having to convince players to come to play for Arsenal. Because at the end of that season, there's a very high possibility that they're coming into a team that they will lift a trophy, and a very prestigious trophy.
Imagine last season we were going for Vlahovic and Locatelli in January. Now imagine trying to do that again, but being in this league position.
No, we get them this summer and this January if we were doing it.
It would have been.
That's exactly where I was thinking about.
Yeah, that is a very, very, very good point, and something that obviously not been mentioned so far in the show. So thank you for that, Neil. Niger, last but not least.
Here we go.
Listen, Niger. We have Gunner King who's saying he's beginning to believe. We've got Neil that's saying, listen, it's hinging on January. JC saying, listen, love what we're doing, but it ain't gonna happen this year. What you saying to me, man?
Are you asking me, can we or will we? What are you asking me?
Will we win the league?
No, we won't win the league. As the squad as it is right now, we won't win the league. Okay. But just like Neil was saying, it does hinge on a positive January window. Because if you're telling me at the end of the January window, we're still top of the league and we've made 2 additions, I'm giving you different answers then. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, completely, because we've got a backup for Partey now. We've got a backup for Saka. Because right now, if Saka gets injured, the level drops. But obviously, people will say, you see what Reece Nelson did. And I respect what Reece did. Do I expect him to give me 10 games like that this season? I know none of us on the panel expect that. But if you look back to I don't want to make it look like I'm getting excited, but if you look back to let's say the 97-98 season, We had the fringe players like the Christopher Rays come in, and then an
This is
up
what
and
I'm
coming,
saying,
and
bro.
Elka came in to do a job. Manninger did a job, and he was basically unheard of them times. So there's little caveats in that. Nelson could do one of those things. Obviously, we signed Overmars that year. We could look at Jesus signing similar to the Overmars thing because we raised our level when Overmars came to the club, and we've raised our levels since last season since Jesus came to the club. And also, I don't know about you, I came into the season with we have to finish top 4, and I need at least 3 points from either Liverpool or City. That part was really, really important to me because they've been collecting 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. Like, are we the devil here? Like all these 6 points that they're collecting for us every season. It was upsetting, bro. Home and away, it was like, what's going on now? So now we got the Liverpool win out the way. For me, I don't know about you lot, but I'm literally not scared to go into any game right now. And I've not been there for years, bro.
Yeah.
Like Chelsea, I was looking at that game. I was looking at going to the Bridge, and not even based on our previous season. I was going to even last year, I was nervous to go into the Bridge, even though we won 4-2. The year before, I was nervous when we won the 1-0. I went into this game like there's nothing that's making me nervous about this game at all. Like, that is us. I'm going in there with chest saying that's our second home. Like, when you able to be going to Chelsea fans, that's our second home. With chest and no banter, you meant that with chest, confidently, our second home. We've been living there rent-free. They haven't charged us for 3 years.
Trust
Not
me, bro.
one copper. Letting us live in the house for free. Can you imagine?
10 times. 10 times we've won at Stamford Bridge in the Premier League era. No team has beaten them there more.
It's crazy.
You see, that's our second home, bro. So this squad can't win the league, but a positive January window, there's a massive opportunity there. And obviously seeing how everyone comes back from the World Cup is going to be interesting because, as Gunnar said, the top 6 clubs players that are involved in the World Cup, they're probably more starters than our players overall. So it could massively hurt those other teams as well, which could give us an extra advantage. And if we stay after the Wolves game, if we're still as far ahead of the rest of the pack as we are, then I'm very confident it's just kind of between us and City at that point.
Yeah.
And as I said, at the end of January, if we have a solid window and we're still top, we're definitely going to be having some different conversations. But if I'm an Arsenal fan, just enjoy the moment right now.
Enjoy the ride,
just
innit?
enjoy where we're at. Like,
enjoy it.
Because one thing that is scary to the other teams is that, not saying that we're all on the same wavelength, but this is the most together the fan base has been in the Emirates era, I'd say.
For a long time.
And it scares the opposition. So what they're trying to do is trying to divide us by getting one side to say we're going to win the league, but we're standing strong, and it scares everyone.
Do you know what? It is that fear factor. Like, when you look at like Wenger and even Graham's days, like, people would come to Highbury or the Emirates and they had already lost, like, mentally, so to speak, you know, like, we've got a 100% win record at the Emirates as well, which is unbelievable, you know, for 13 games. A better start to a league season than the Invincible season. Arteta's first 150 games has seen him get more wins than any Arsenal manager
I saw that as well.
in the history of managing Arsenal. You know, like, there is this genuine fear now, you know, like I did a host of previews with you know, Chelsea fans, both, you know, here on the Armoury with Carefree Lewis, Deal CFC, and jumped on their channels as well, speaking to a few like Gems, and, you know, other Chelsea fans, and they the most of them, you know, Prime as well, they were just like, we're gonna get beat. I've never seen them be that defeated about playing Arsenal at home, like, since before 2003, really. You know, like, and you know, I think that's symbolic, you know, of just the massive change, you know, metamorphosis that's taken place at this club. You know, there's still a lot more to do, but
yeah, definitely.
What a transformation it's been, man.
I mean, in terms of me, you know, the question is, I think Nigel kind of summed it up. The question is, can we or will we? For me, the question is, if the question is, can we win the league? I 100% believe we can win the league, because can is not will. Do you know what I mean? Like, for me, there's a possibility. Like, I've seen Leicester City win the league.
Exactly.
For me, when I look at the squad we have a far better squad than Leicester did at that time. Now, don't get me wrong, competition in the league was not what it is right now. However, can we win the league? I believe we can win the league. Will we win the league? My belief is growing, but I can't commit to that. I just can't. I'm not a delusional Spurs fan. I'm a rush.
I am of that camp as well, by the way.
I can't throw all my rationale and all my common sense out the window and just get caught up in the moment and just say some really crazy stuff online. I can't do that. I've got to keep my logic in place. So that's kind of my answer to that question in terms of, can we win the league and will we win the league? Now, before we wrap things up, because I wanted the show to be an hour because I know we've got a game tonight and I want to try my best to find a blooming stream. Which is going to be a hard task. But just quickly, there was one thing that came up in one of the group chats that I'm in on Twitter, or I think my friend actually might have sent it to me. And I thought it was an interesting one because we've all spoken about January, despite me, obviously, as the host, not necessarily bringing it up. So what that tells me is that that's already there. We're all we're already looking ahead to January. Now, he put this question to me, and I thought it was a really good question. And it was like, in terms of how Arsenal are going to approach January, I'm going to put it up on the screen. Now, we've got two options here. I can never pronounce his name, the Ukrainian lad. Mudryk or Danilo as a pair, so a winger and a defensive midfielder, or a midfielder period, or Premier League proven Zaha / Tielemans. So if you could choose between either pair, who would you pick and why for this January window? And I'll come to you first, Nigel.
Why? Why do you do this to me?
You wanted some time to think, innit?
You know what? Yeah. If I would love to say Zaha and Tielemans because I believe Zaha would love a chance to go to a big club, his boyhood club, right some of the wrongs from Manchester United when he was last at a big club and push on for the back end of his career. But for the sheer fact that Danilo is actually a DM, because because I'd love Tielemans as an extra, but we need an upgrade on El Neni to come in for Xhaka. For Partey, sorry. And I believe Danilo is definitely an upgrade on El Neni. I've not seen too much of him, but I've heard a lot about him. I've done the usual YouTube stuff as well. I've looked through what some journalists have said about his progress as well, and he's an actual DM, not a CM, and that's what we need, a DM. And every time I watch this Mudryk guy, I get more and more excited about him. He's like, he's a dribbler. Yeah. As good as Saka is, he's not. He can beat a man. Don't get it twisted, Saka, but he's not a dribbler like that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like intricate dribbler, dribble 2, 3, 4 man, and Mudryk definitely looks like it. And that hardest steer of the Ukrainians as well, is definitely something that I'm excited about. And he's performed at a high level, which is in the Champions League. So I would go with Mudryk and Danilo as much. I would love Zaha. If you said Zaha and Danilo, maybe it'd be a different conversation. But these are the options you've given me, I'm going to go with Mudryk and Danilo.
No problem. JC, I'm going to come to you. Which pair and why?
I'm going to go Mudryk and Danilo as well. I can see why people will go for Zaha and Tielemans because when you look at the impact that some of our recent signings have made with that Premier League experience, that's a tick box right there straight away. But also when you look at the fact that there are no more egos at Arsenal, and from what I've understood, Zaha is a big ego. Whether or not it would be an issue in the changing room, I don't know. But some good points that Nigel made just a moment ago is the fact that you look at Mudryk, he's played in the Champions League. He's played against big teams. He's good at dealing with pressure. He's played at the top level in the Ukrainian league. So he's got that winning mentality. So for me, that's huge. And then Danilo is the obvious one to come in for a replacement for Thomas Partey. And he's not going to break the bank either. And to be fair, I don't think Zaha or Tielemans would break the bank because they're contract situations. But Edu seems to be really good at finding Brazilian gems. So if he's any sort of similar to some of the other guys, then yeah, those two for me would be the two.
No problem. Gunner King, which pair and why?
It's not even about the pair. It's not even about the pair. It's about Mudryk. This guy, I've been watching him. I've been watching this guy closely, and
I knew what you was gonna say before I even asked the question, bro.
This guy is a special player, man. He's so gifted. You know, like he can use both of his feet. You know, like on that transition, he's very dangerous. And I know a lot of people said, yeah, but most of their build-up play is transitional. Can he adapt to our system? Like if you just look at his technique and the way that he carries the ball, his passing as well. You know, he can score goals in the air as well. He's good in the air. He can shoot from distance. He can get in the box. He can cross. He can like do cutbacks. He's just does everything. You know, like, and for me, he's just exciting. And you know when you're considering, we've got Zinchenko on the left-hand side, who's playing in that left-back channel. You know, also Ukrainian. You know, I think that will really help him to settle. You know, you've got a strong Brazilian contingent as well in the squad, so I think that will help Danilo settle a lot as well. So even though they haven't got the Premier League experience, I see that as a bridge to not having it. But just Mudryk's talent. To go back to it, like this guy, I think he could go on to be like a top player, man. You're seeing him turn up in pressure situations in the Champions League. He's just the guy I want, like, you know, above anyone else this January. And I think also when you look at Zaha and Tielemans and the fact that they're only in the last 6 months of their contract, if you want Tielemans as well as Danilo, why not? He's not going to cost a great deal. You know, 10, 15 million, that's going to get that done. Danilo, I think, as Nigel said, is more of a sixth player, you know, in the mold of that player. And I've maintained that's a bigger priority than getting another number 8. Smith Rowe will come back from injury, and I see him very much as an 8 or a 10 anyway. I've never seen him as a wide left player, you know. So he gives you another option there, along with Vieira, Odegaard, and Xhaka. That's 4 8s that you've got already. You know, okay, you've only got one right-footed one, which is why I'm not against bringing Tielemans in. But I just think if you compare that in the priority area of Partey, you've got El Neni and Lokonga, and we've discussed that quality gap being more drastic than the other ones. So for me, that's why that the first two of Mudryk and Danilo makes sense.
No problem. And Neil, you're gonna basically wrap up the show and let us know which pair and why. Has he frozen? I
think so, yeah.
For me, I would say why. I'm there. You see, it's been good all stream, but it's been good all stream. There's a hurricane. So for me, I'll tell you why I wouldn't take Zaha and Tielemans. The reason why I wouldn't take Zaha, I believe he will be an issue in the changing room. I think he has that aura about him. He has a bit of an attitude problem and a bit of a temper, to say the least. And in terms of Tielemans, when Tielemans was available in the summer window, we were in for him in some parts. But then when we were not in for him at all, no other team went in for him, even for a team like Liverpool, who does need a midfielder to come in right now because they're very short in that area. So it says to me that they're probably staying away from him for a reason, for whatever reason that is. I don't know. It could be that they're just waiting to see if his price will go down in January, maybe. But I've seen Danilo play. I've watched him play for Palmeiras, and this guy is a rock. So I would love to see him be a part of this Arsenal team. In terms of the unknown part of Mudryk, if this is anything close to what Gunner King is saying, I'm excited to see him be a part of the team. And he made good points there. The Brazilian link, the Ukrainian link, it's gonna be a good bridge for these guys to get settled in the team quickly.
No problem. We'll just go through a couple of these comments.
Brazil FC and that.
We're gonna wrap up things because obviously I want to go and find this stream. So we got Ryan here saying, "Oh, so difficult. I picked Zaha and Tielemans only because Zaha can be utilized as a striker, but I like the other two. Edging it, but yeah, Danilo is a DM and Mudryk is cold. We've got Mudryk and Danilo for me. His turn of pace is similar to that of Overmars, and we need a DM more than we do need Tielemans. Antonio here saying always prefers players with Premier League experience, as it usually means they'll be ready for the toughest league in the world. And then the Hurricane isn't here yet. Pay it, pull that internet bill. You know what's interesting? I will say the last thing before we wrap things up is in the group chat, it was predominantly people wanting Zaha and Tielemans, and the general conversation was basically signing Mudryk and Danilo would be a long-term plan, but if we're in a title race in January, we would benefit more from the experience of Zaha and Tielemans.
But
and
I
kind of get it. If it was, it would be
if it's a long term, you're spot on, bro. Mudryk and Danilo. But if we're in a title race, like if you ask me to take Zaha and Danilo, Zaha, for me, the sheer fact that he can play through the middle changes the whole look for me. Because if Jesus does get injured, he can slot in nicely in the middle as well, and that's the big difference. So if we're in the title challenge, I would take Zaha and Danilo over Mudryk. Yeah. But so if we're still kind of it's mad.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one, isn't it? It's the mix up between the two. I think in a way, what we'd prefer is either to mix up the two or to have a blend of three kind of thing. But yeah, we're gonna wrap things up because, like I said, we're 10 minutes away from kickoff. I want to find a stream. So yeah, we're gonna wrap things up. So obviously, I want to big up Niger for joining us, even though you was late. I'm gonna kill you with that every single time, you know, because I'm big on punctuality. Gunner King, obviously unexpected attendance, but it's all good, bruv. You made some excellent points, bruv. So yeah, that perspective of the World Cup, I didn't even see where you was even going with that or where you got that from. So yeah, big up Gunner King, and obviously to our two external guests. Neil, thank you so much for coming. I know your appearance was in the air with regards to the Hurricane, but let the people know where they can find you. And massive thank you for coming on the show.
You guys could find me on Twitter at Neil at Benchwarmers Podcast and YouTube and Benchwarmers Podcast as well. And in terms of Instagram and Facebook, Neil Dwarka, the Realtor.
No problem, man. And big up yourself, man. Thank you so much, man. Head over to them socials, people, and get following. And JC, like I said, Mr. Arsenal Analyzed with the facts and the stats. Tell the people where they can actually find you, bro.
Well, firstly, thank you very much for inviting me on. And you were absolutely spot on. It was something that needed to be talked about before the World Cup, and I'm sure that will change as the season progresses. But yeah, if anyone fancies coming to check out my content, I'm over on YouTube and Twitter /Arsenal Analyzed. And as the name suggests, if there's anything going on with Arsenal, whether it's signings, games, you name it, I basically analyze it. So come and check me out, subscribe if you're interested. But more importantly, thank you very much for having me.
Wicked, man. And yeah, that wraps up episode 2 of GTalks. Don't know what we're going to be discussing next week, but yeah, until then, peace out, people. Take it easy. Have a good evening, and let's get the win tonight.